I read 7 books in the month of January, which is not a lot compared to what I used to read a couple years ago, but it's still a lot on a normal scale. I feel like it was a good reading month. It could have been better, but it was still good and there were some enjoyable reads. So let's just go through them all. And they're all fantasy. Should we start with my least favourite and then work my way up to the favourites? So my least favourite was Daughter of Chaos, and it's such a shame because this started off so well when she was in her village and everything with her sister and religion was going on. I was really invested, but then as soon as she went on her journey and met familiar faces, because it is like based in Greek mythology, so there are, you know, gods and demigods that you will be familiar with, and when she met a certain ragtag group, something about it just felt inauthentic. Like, I don't know, when it's a character that everyone already knows and loves, it's hard for you to try and rebrand that character as someone else. I'm trying not to spoil who it is. Does it say in the synopsis? Oh yeah, it does. There she encounters the mighty demigod Hercules, Heracles, however they say it. We all know Hercules, right? We all watch the same Disney movies. It's so hard to explain, but when she met him, it just turned the story and it made it very much a Hercules story. I was invested in her, but now she's kind of attached to this person and this mission that they're on, which is also a very big mission in Greek mythology. I like Greek mythology, but I like it for being Greek mythology rather than Greek mythology mixed into a new fantasy story. It's really hard for me to put the two together. I think this was my first time doing it, but I don't know if I like it. Another one that I gave 3 stars that didn't really work for me was Cruel is the Light. Now this one, I did enjoy the plot. I did enjoy the fantasy aspects. We're dealing with demons and demon hunters, exorcists. She's an exorcist and he's a foot soldier, and he's going on this self-discovery journey, but she needs to help him to discover something. I was invested in the plot. However, I was not invested in the romance, and I feel like the romance did end up kind of feeling inauthentic and feeling rushed, and it just felt like we got to I love you way before we should have. It just felt a bit unearned because they hadn't had any tender moments. They had funny flirty banter, which is cool and cute, and you know, but you don't fall in love from funny flirty banter. You fall in love because you know this person on a deeper level and you know what type of person they are, what they've been through. But I feel like we didn't get that deeper level until after they were already in love. I don't know, something about the romance just wasn't working for me. Certain aspects of the world were not described well in my opinion, like their magic. How does she have this magic? I know they get it from somewhere, but how? And is it a one-time thing? Like, once she gets the magic from there, does she just have magic forever, or does she need to top up every month, every year? Like, how does it work? I just kind of wanted it to go a little bit deeper into the lore and the world, so I felt like I truly understand and I lived here, you know. It was easy to picture because it is based in Rome. A Language of Dragons, I definitely did enjoy this a lot more than the first 2 books. So this one I gave 3.5 stars. I feel like this one is YA, but it definitely reads more middle grade. Like, none of these characters felt, I think they said they were 17, were not giving I'm nearly an adult. They were giving I'm still very much a child. But I said this to one of my friends. I was like, sometimes I think we are a bit too hard on YA and we expect every decision to kind of make sense as adults to us. It's just fun vibes to read, you know. It doesn't always need to be smart smart decisions. I feel like this book will be the perfect entry level for teens to get into political fantasy, to get into dark academia fantasy, because they have this vibe, you know, this vibe of studying and betrayal and doing what you need to do to win, no matter who you have to step on to get there. There was that type of vibe in here. Political fantasy, because it does deal with like class systems and how treaties can benefit the upper class but not necessarily the lower classes on both sides of the treaty, basically. So the treaty is between the dragons and the UK government, basically. There's loads of dragons in this world, and dragons have their own language. Their languages vary and they are studied. So a lot of humans know dragon languages. However, there is one method of communication that the dragons do that humans do not know, and they find out about it and they task our main character with cracking that code. Our main character needs to figure out if the cost of translating this sacred dragon language is worth the cost to the dragons for her own benefit. So yeah, the message in here is really nice and it is a great book, but I just feel like it is written very young, so it wasn't for me personally. Now all of the rest of the books are 4 stars, so I did enjoy all of them. Starting off with the final in the Sacred Stones trilogy. So this is A Reign of Rose. The first 2 books I read in December, which are A Dawn of Onyx and A Promise of Peridot. Now this is a completed fantasy romance trilogy, so I just went ahead and binged all 3 books and I had a blast with this series. I feel like Kate Golden's writing works for me, the way she does her characters, her romance, the fantasy plot, like everything was so well balanced and really fun. She has an insane ending in every single book. Like the last 100 pages in every single one of these books had my jaw on the floor. I was hooked, I was invested, I needed the next book ASAP, which is why I ended up binging all of them. I feel like this series is so underrated. I would recommend binging them because if you leave space in between them, I could see how you wouldn't be as invested, or I wouldn't say it's forgettable, but I would say if you don't binge them, then there's a possibility that you can lose the ability to care, because they're not stories and plots that stick with you. Like it's not going to be, well it might be, but it's not my all-time favorite books, but I did have a fabulous fun time binging them and I can't fault this series at all. Like it was fun, it had dragon shifters, it had a fast-paced plot, it had a healer, female main character, it had a tortured king, prince, male main character, you know, all of the fun fantasy tropes that we love was in here. And I love the side characters as well. They had their own little romance story going on, and I would actually love to see more of Griffin and Mari, and kind of low-key hope they get their own books because they have their own little romance going on and I'm very invested in it, and there was kind of no closure for that romance in the 3rd book. So Miss Golden, please. I would love to get their story, but yeah, really enjoyed this series. Next, I read Bonesmith, which is the 1st book in a duology, so it is completed. You can binge it. Once again, I am going to read the 2nd book very soon. It is here on my TBR. This book I was just expecting to be like White Walkers, Game of Thrones, fantasy, you know, journey vibes. I did not expect there to be a romance in here, which took me by surprise, pleasantly surprised. So basically the setup in this book is our female main character, Ren, I believe her name is. Yes, Ren is in a trial to become a Valkyrie, a Bonesmith. She gets sabotaged in this trial. This all happens in the 1st chapter, so I'm not spoiling anything. She gets sabotaged and her grandma, who is the head of the Bonesmith, sends her away. So basically, you've embarrassed me, get out of my face, and she gets sent to this wall. No one wants to be at the wall, there's no action at the wall, so it's like a shameful place for Ren to be. So Ren gets there, finds out that a prince is coming to inspect the wall. Basically he's been sent there by his father to kind of get out of my face as well, go do something with yourself, pretend like you're doing your princely duties. So he's, you know, inspecting the wall. Oh yeah, looks like security's good here, and then he gets kidnapped by some people that live beyond the wall. However, while he's being kidnapped, an ironsmith who was also part of the kidnapping gets betrayed. He ends up on this journey with Ren to save the prince, and things are uncovered from there. But yeah, it was such a fun read, and the way this ends, I need to read the 2nd book ASAP because I'm so excited to know what's next for our characters. I need to know what's going on with the romance, I need to know what's going on with some people's powers, and I just need to know what's going on. So yeah, I'm really excited to continue this series. I gave this book 4 stars, and I think if you like this type of undead White Walkers vibe with a little hint of romance, I would say go for it. It was fun. A book that I gave 4.5 stars this month, or last month, Immortal by Sue Lynn Tan. Now this is my first Sue Lynn Tan book. This is the Fairy Loot edition. How gorgeous is this? How beautiful. Oh my god. I am obsessed with this edition. So yeah, this was my first Sue Lynn Tan book and definitely will not be my last. Her writing is definitely for me. Her writing, this is her first adult book, so I'm not sure what the differences will be in her writing style in Daughter of the Moon Goddess, because I do believe that one is YA, but her writing in here, I wouldn't say it's purpley prosy. It was still really easy to read, but it was lyrical in a way that was accessible but still beautiful, and something about the writing just really worked for me. It felt relatable, like there was some quotes in here. The female main character starts the book feeling really sick, and honestly the way she described her sickness, I was literally like, that sounds like me. It sounds like my anemia. Like she describes it as having this bone deep coldness, and that's literally me. My hands are always cold, my feet are always cold, I'm always cold. And this tiredness and not being sick but also not feeling well, that is literally my life. Plot wise, it was also very fast paced. It's a standalone, and she had not only the world to build, well, the world is the same as Daughter of the Moon Goddess, but of course I haven't read that, so she had to build the world for me from scratch. She had the romance and the characters and the plot, everything to build, and I was just so invested. Something big happened and you're like, but we've still got 300 pages left to go. We've still got 200 pages left to go. Like, how many twists and turns and curveballs are you gonna throw at me? I loved it. Like the imagery of them traveling by cloud and the gods having their own separate world in the sky. Like, it was just very enchanting and very whimsical and very fantasy, and I just really enjoyed it. I loved the romance as well. It did feel like insta love, but then something happens and it makes sense. So you just have to trust Sue Lynn Tan, go with the flow, let the ride take you. Try not to spoil anything, I'm really trying, but I really thoroughly enjoyed my time with this book. And last but not least, I read The Road of Bones, which is also another romantasy, and this one I believe I gave 4 stars. It would have gotten higher because I love the world. It's a Viking inspired romantasy, and I am familiar with Vikings and Norse mythology because I have read John Gwynne before. So the gods that they believe in, the culture, the terminology that they used, it was all very familiar to me. So it had the potential, and like the plot line I really liked. Our female main character is being hunted and she doesn't know why, but her father tells her, get to this address, someone will keep you safe there. So she has to travel the Road of Bones, which is a very dangerous road that takes you all the way north, but there's so many like mercenaries and bandits and soldiers and people that she has to avoid while on the Road of Bones. So she joins up with this mercenary group and convince them to take her to where she needs to go. But while she's with them, romance starts to, it's kind of like a love triangle. So there's 2 guys that you're like, does she like them? Does she not? Does she like this one? No, she likes this one. No, she must like this one. So you're not really sure, you know? And then I saw this artwork and it was of her and the other guy, and I was like, okay, so it's clearly that guy. And then once you know that, it kind of ruins the reading experience for this book. So I would just say avoid any artwork if you can, guys, because it is spoiler. So it did kind of take away the element of surprise for me personally of who she was going to end up with. However, what happens at the end of this book, I am very invested, and I'm really hoping that the found family will be built better in the second book, or built more, because I really loved Hecla, it is Hecla. I really like the relationship between Scylla and Hecla. That felt like a really believable sister, like found family bond. But everyone else, I was kind of like, can we get to know them a bit more? So I'm hoping maybe in book 2 there'll be a little bit more found family, because that is one of my favorite tropes. And of course more from the romance now that I do know who the love interest is in book 2. Sorry, my battery died, but that is the last book that I've read in January. So yeah, those are all of the books that I read in the month of January. Let me know if you've read any of them, your thoughts on them. And yeah, I feel like it was a good reading month. Not a great one because I didn't read any epic high fantasies, and that is kind of like one of my big 2025 bookish goals, to read all of the epic high fantasies that I do have on my shelves and I've been wanting to read for years. So a little bit upset at myself that I didn't manage to get around to any, but this is my TBR for this month, and I do have Of War and Ruin by Ryan Carhill on there. If you guys saw my TBR jar picks, my February TBR, I'm hoping that will scratch my epic high fantasy itch that I clearly have. But apart from that, really enjoyed these books this month, and I will see you guys in my next video. Take care. Bye.